Welcome. Teaching the Lord Worship Center. You got myself, Pastor Lolita Gilmore Randall, and the lovely Elder Lillian Woods. Let me tell you something. This young lady is such a joy. I'm telling you, she really is. And if ever there was a mentor or if ever there was a Naomi, and when I say Naomi, I don't mean, in age. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about with the wisdom and the stature of just being there when you need her. And just being a friend, being a sister, and having that nurturing spirit that no matter what happens, it's okay that we can talk. It's okay. We can have that conversation. This is the free judgment zone. There's no judgment here. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for always being here. I mean, no matter what it is, and so I love you for that. I mean, and that's not why I love you because you're always here. It's just the fact that you have such a heart for serving, you know, and with that, when we look around this day and time, and where we are, we're talking about a season for love, and the best type of love is a friend that would lay down their life, and that's what John was talking about. One friend that would lay down his life, that's closer than a brother. And it takes me back to where Jesus was on the cross, and he was saying, who is my mother? Who is my brother? Those who do the will of the Father. And so we salute you tonight, Elder. We really, really do. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm just sitting there, and I gotta want to highlight another young lady, Minister Stacy. Let me tell you what she did. Yeah. This just it touched my heart. She last night she came by. I had given her a book, my book that I wrote. Last year I gave her the book, right? Well, she had some time, and she finally sat down and she read the book. It's called The Simple Leaf, right? So she reads the book and everything, and she says, "Oh my God, I can so identify with the characters in this book and what we're saying because it talks about the detriments of child abuse and domestic violence and who truly suffers when you're talking about family dysfunction and these family dynamics that nobody really likes to talk about and who really suffers." And so in reading that, she said, I can relate to the characters in that book. And so last night she comes by and she gives me a plant, and when she had just replanted it, and it was just, you saw the little leaf just, peeping out, and it's right there. And she said, I planted this with that book in mind and with you in mind, to say this is what a simple leaf looks like and what it can blossom to be. So that was just such a blessing indeed. So thank you, Stacy. If you're listening, you're watching, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so this is where we're talking about. And let me not, it'd be remiss of me not to highlight our other pastor, Pastor Novice McDaniel. She's on the road doing her thing. And so just, I mean, we're at a point now where God is, when He's putting a circle together, and as we move, move on some of the things that we're doing. And so I want to thank Pastor McDaniel for what she's doing with Women Emerge and the things that they're doing on that side of the house. And I love it. It's beautiful. And I see all the conferences and everything that she's putting together. So this is going to be amazing. It's an amazing ministry. And then our friend, our new minister on the block, Miss Caroline, she's working on a project tonight, right? She's working on a project tonight. And she is like, hey, she's in JDS too. And so when we talk about JDS, we're talking about Jake's Divinity School. And so there are different parts of this school. I was in the doctoral program, and now she's getting her bachelor's as she moves through. And so she's working on a project tonight. She said, I can't be there tonight because I got to finish this project. I know all too well about having to meet deadlines, and the suspenses. So hats off to you, Carolyn. We have you in our prayers. Keep moving this thing. You got it. Love you, girl. Keep on moving. And so then we have to bless and thank Bishop. Bishop Jones, Dwayne K. Jones, and all of us have been walking in this ministry together, and how we keep moving, we keep doing, and what God is having us to do, and we're seeing how it's growing. And we always say this is not your traditional church. This is not your traditional ministry. This is the ministry that God would have. This is the type of ministry that I can see Christ talking to Nicodemus when he was talking to Nicodemus. And we talked about it. This is part 2 of what we talked about on Sunday. And he's telling Nicodemus, how can you be a leader, a true leader of Israel, and you not know the deep things of God? You don't know what it means to be born again, being born of the Spirit. And Nicodemus, he sat there and he's like, how can this be? Do I have to enter in my mother's womb? And and I could just imagine Jesus looking at him, just puzzled. Like, and I love what he told me. He said, you are a teacher of Israel, and you do not know these things, and you have no understanding of what we're dealing with. And that's why I love when he said, those who have an ear to hear, let them hear what the Lord, what the Spirit is saying to the church. Let them hear. Those who have eyes to see, let them see. See, we're in a season now. We have to learn to hear, and we have to learn to see. And when we're trying to do it in a natural sense, and in the natural, you're not going to get it. In the natural, you're not going to get it, because in the natural, the heart and everything becomes convoluted with the issues of life. And so we're trying to sit there and do all these things. And this is where Paul comes on the scene, because now we have to understand what love is all about. We got to understand what love is all about, right? And so Paul is talking about in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, that's the love chapter. And in the love chapter, he's saying that you can have everything. And we're not going to be here long tonight. I just wanted to come back and go over that, because there's so much happening right now in our lives. This is the season where people will take their life, all because they feel as though they're not loved. This is the season when people will go into a deep depression and can barely come out because of self-loathing. There's no love there. They don't know how to put their arms around themselves. Put your arm around yourself before you can even think about placing your arms around another. How about hugging you? How about loving on you? And so this is what we begin to talk about, because as we go on, how can this be? Jesus is looking. How could they not understand love? How can they not understand being born again? Being born again, and now I hear Christ before me. Y'all, what I wouldn't give to just have a little time machine. But we can go back and actually see everything in action, see everything in motion. You know what I mean? And be able to say, God, I see you. I know what you mean. I know why now. And looking in the conversation that he was having with Nicodemus, I can pretty much understand, because it used to baffle me a little bit when the woman with the issue of blood, when she touched him, and he was like, who touched me? Who had that type of faith? But now that I'm looking at, he's talking to the Pharisees and the leaders of Israel, and we're not even talking about having that level of faith. They don't even believe. They don't even believe. And the part about the belief system, they've got caught up in themselves with greed, with religiosity. They're not even loving on one another. They see the people as paupers and not trying to take care of them. It became all about power and control. And he's sitting there looking for someone that would have that level of faith, that just didn't have to be in front of him, didn't have to touch him, didn't have to talk with him, but just the hem of his garment. And when we talk about, I say the hem of your garment, if you look at this, just this jacket right here, just the hem, not even the whole jacket, just the hem of it. And to have that type of faith, To know that this woman had that kind of faith, that if she just got in your presence and just touched the hem of your God, that her whole body would be healed. That's powerful. I think that would have blown my mind too, because I'm walking with the disciples. I got my disciples. You know, people need, it's time to disciple people. And he's trying to do that. And everybody is going on their own way. And some, they don't even believe up until he comes back. He's been risen from the dead. And then they got to touch the holes in his hands and in his side before even they would believe. But you had this little old lady that said, no, only thing I need to do is touch the hem of his garment. That's all I need to do. That's all. That's the kind of love. That's the kind of love that we're talking about in this season. That's the kind of love that you want to look at and say, oh my God, that type of love right there. So that's when we talk about this season right here. This is when we go back and begin to look at First Corinthians. And what was Paul talking about? What was going on with Paul? You know, that he would begin to write this. And you're like, oh my God, you're so powerful in everything that you're doing right here. Because I want to go back. Let's just be patient with me for a minute. Let me go back. And we're going to read First Corinthians chapter 13. And think about this and where you are right now. Because it says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and I have not charity, substitute charity for love. Okay. I am become as sounding brass, as a tinkling cymbal. You know, our brass, if it's not in concert with the right instruments and the right notes, it's just noise. Okay. And though I have the gift of prophecy, I can foretell things, and I understand all mysteries and I and all knowledge. And though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, that I can move mountains, and have not charity, and have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, because sometimes we give and we do things to be seen, so that individuals can see us and applaud us, but it has nothing to do with love. It profited me nothing, he says. Charity suffers. It really does. Love suffered long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself. Doesn't puff itself up. Doesn't say, I am who I am and all this good stuff. See me. No, 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 no. Charity, love doesn't do that. So do not behave itself. Love doesn't behave itself unseemingly, and seeketh not his her own, and is not provoked, easily provoked, and thinketh no evil. It doesn't rejoice in iniquity and rejoice, but rejoice in the truth. But love bears all things, believe all things, hope at all things, endureth all things. Charity, love, that is, never fails. But whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Yeah. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we only know in part and we prophesy in part. We don't know the whole story, is what he's saying. Nobody knows it all. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, and I pull up this right here, when I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man or woman, I put away childish things. Because now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know, even also as I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, charity. But out of all these things, the greatest is charity, the greatest is love. So we're living in a time now where we're seeing all of this wars and rumors of wars. You know, it ain't no more rumors now. Everybody at each other's throat. You're seeing babies killed. You know, it's just crazy. So we see all of this. And so what we talked about on Sunday, we talked about the transformation of love, or the power of love. And then talking about the transformative power of love, the transformation, how it transformed. There are different stages to this. We talk about the priority of love. That's what Paul, and I'm going to go back and reiterate what Paul was saying right there. But let me give you the different levels here. The priority of love, the characteristics of love, the permanence of love. Okay. That's number three. The maturity of love and the ultimate triumph of love, that ultimate gift. And we're going to see, and we know God gave that ultimate price for love. When you have children and people that you love in your life, that's a sacrifice that some of us will make, that others like, oh, well, I can't see myself doing that. But when it comes to your children, your grandchildren, your babies, there's some sacrifices there that you're like, you know what, I laid my life down for certain individuals in my life. And that's the ultimate triumph. And so going back to that, we got to get back to what made Paul. We know it was godly inspired. We know it was spirit inspired. We know God, we know all of that. But what happened? What was going on during this time? Because it says that's one of the most profound passages in the Bible. And so it has become known as the love chapter. And so you're like, okay, because it captures, and I believe, and in reading it, it captures the essence and the significance of how significant love is in your daily life. The significance. There are some people that never know what love is. You look at children who have been abused and they lack nurturing. So they grow up and they're cold and they're hard and they're mean because they don't know what a gentle, loving touch feels like. And if you would ever try to go and and connect with that child, you'll see them kind of push back or recoil. And it's because this is not a familiar place. Not that they don't want it, but love has not been inviting in their lives. Love has not been gentle in their lives. They don't know it as an act of kindness, of joy, of embrace, of nurturing. They don't know it like that. What was supposed to love me has caused me pain and suffering. So there's not, I would never allow myself to become that vulnerable in that place again. So we in these people, children, young adults, grow up to be older adults, right? And they're trying to function in relationships. And they find out that, wait a minute, I'm loving you the best way I can. You want to hug all on me, you want me to be tender, I don't know how to do all of that. I really don't know how to do all of that. So these things have to be unlearned now, because all of these are what behaviors? These are learned behaviors that have to be unlearned. These are conditioned, they become conditioned, these conditional responses. Because now I understand that when a hand goes out to me, I don't know what to expect. Is it friendly or foe? I don't know about all of that. So I'm in a constant state of alert. So when you look at me and say, well, you know what, she just doesn't want anybody to touch her. Well, don't be so quick to judge the individual, because we don't know how they identify when it comes to love. Where's the priority? So now Paul began to talk about emphasizing the importance of love above all else. But when you come out of environments where it's not emphasized enough, you do the opposite. So what's the opposite of love? Okay. And so now what's the opposite of structure? Now we're looking at chaos. Now the person is chaotic. The situation is chaotic. They're hard to get along with. You can't really talk with them. Why? Because that's the opposite of love. Because now Paul tells us to possess all these spiritual gifts and the eloquence and the knowledge and all that means nothing. Can you imagine that? Socrates, all these great philosophers, they have all this knowledge, But without love, he's saying, on the spiritual gifts, they had all this knowledge. And you think about some of the prophets back in the day, all the spiritual gifts. What if it was said that they had no love? That means that was nothing. So love is the foundation upon which our faith and actions should be built. But if we don't grow up in environments like that, we don't know that. We don't know that. And then we'll have the audacity to sit down and ask ourselves, well, how can somebody just go out and murder people? Because, wait a minute, if I don't have that foundation, if love is the driving force that guides our relationships with God and others, if you're operating with the absence of love, what's the driving force then? See, and for some, you can't imagine that. You can't imagine because you're like, oh my God, I can't even imagine. Right, right. But there's a population. We say the world, but we're in the world too. There's some parts of us. And when I say us, I'm talking about the brethren. Okay. I'm talking about those of the faith. How quick someone can turn around and want to crucify someone because they don't share the same belief system. But it's supposed to be the driving force. It's supposed to be love, the foundation upon which our faith and everything is built upon. But we can kill others. We can deny others. We can walk away from others. We can ostracize others. We can have people sleeping on the ground and not feed them. Why? Because they've come into a country that didn't want them or they had nowhere else to go. But we can turn our backs and we can do all these things. And so then we have labels. We call them, okay, somebody's a liberal, somebody's a Democrat, somebody is a Republican, somebody is an independent. Where all these names come from? Can we get back to love? Can we get back to the word of God? Can we get back to the foundation? Can that be the driving force and not our political biases? What's the driving force there? And you got people that, they talk about, well, when we get into power, what happened to the power of love? What happened to that relationship? And so this is where Paul is coming in now, and he's talking about this. You guys can do all of this. But if you don't have that aspect right there, that's the priority. So then he goes on, he begins to talk about the characteristics of it. And he says, wait a minute, let me tell you what love really is. It's patient, it's kind, it's not envious, it's not boastful, it's not arrogant, it's not rude. Yeah, no, 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 no. It bears all things and believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Because yeah, we're like, well, I'm not gonna believe that. Oh, well, you got to believe it, but it's happening. And so if we deny it, does that mean it's not happening? No, it's still there. So now we have to bear these things, right? But we have hope that we can move forward in all things and we can endure as we go on. These are the qualities, that we have to look and examine our life. And said, oh, this examination that we're looking at, we have to examine our own lives. That's what I was saying earlier. Put your arms around yourself. Examine who you are. Look at the man in the mirror. Let me examine this person. Let me look at my own life. And can I say I'm above another? This is what I love about my Lord and Savior, that he would come in the flesh and dwell amongst them and sit and had no place to lay his head because it wasn't about all of that. Born in a manger. I remember when we took the trip over to Israel, we have the scenes of the nativity scene, right? For every Christmas, and we see the baby Jesus in the manger, and you see the shepherds and everybody, the wise men standing around. Well, we take the trip to Israel. I'll never forget it. And we get to the top of the hill. And let me put this part in first of all. I didn't realize this was back in 2009, how out of shape we are in America. We're in Israel. Now, our guide was 73 years old. Okay, when we were looking at him, we're thinking, okay, he's about our age and a little bit older. And so we're trying to get up the steep hill, and he taking us to the top of the hill because he wants us to see the stables and everything. So we got to climb this little steep. We all out of breath, and the man looks back. He has he has his little staff, right? And he looks back, and he was like, what is wrong with you guys? What is wrong with you? And he was like, do I need to stop? Let me just get a drink of water. And so he's climbing and climbing and climbing. We were so embarrassed when we got back to that bus. And the driver told us that I was like, well, why is he acting like this towards us? He was like, he's acting like that because you don't know he's 73 years old. We're like, what? He's 73 years old. And the hill, when I tell you it was steep, it was steep. You know, it was like, oh, he's 73. And it was like, yeah, but this is a lifestyle for us. Okay. This is a lifestyle for us. I'm like, okay. But get back to the manger. We get up there and we see the stables and where the horses and everything are. Well, I'm like, okay, I'm looking for the manger. I'm looking for a manger. And it's this concrete object, looks like a box with a little shallow um um cut in it. And it's where the horses drink from. The horses drink from this. And we stood there, and I could tell you that everybody in that group, we were speechless. We were speechless because we were like, wait a minute. We have seen the mangers, the little wicker baskets with the beautiful blankets and all of that. No, no, it was a concrete slab, cold, hard. And I looked at that and everybody was sitting there, and it was this awkward silence that everyone shared for that moment to look at this rock, basically, that had been shaped and molded, and for the horses to drink out of. This is what Jesus was born in his first bed for the horses to drink out of. And oh my God. And it just it got me, that really got me. And I said, God, how can we be so selfish in our lives and about what we do? How can we look at this and deny anybody anything? How can we do that? And so, and we learned so much from that trip. And so going down the hill now, we get back down and we're sitting on the bus, and he wants to know that anybody want to go. It took our appetite. We didn't even want to go to lunch, and then they would show us that we went on from there. Then we went over to the Garden of Gethsemane. And even in that garden, beautiful garden. Oh my God, absolutely phenomenal. It was beautiful. And over in the area, and you're like, this is from the manger being born, and no comfort at all. And then take us over to the Garden of Gethsemane. You're like, that type of love, that type of love. You know what I'm saying? And when I begin to look and do this study right here, you see, it took me back to a place, because I'm like, God, can we get to that place? Can we get to that type of love? Can we get to that place where it's not about the color of our skin? Can we get to that? It's not about our culture. It's not about that. Now, those things are important. Don't get me wrong. They're important. We don't want to dismiss that, because it's who we are. It's a unique part of who we are. If everybody was the same, then everybody would be born and look as the same. If it wasn't important, we'd all look the same. But so that's not the different regions of the world. All of that is important. Okay, we're talking about humanity. There's a reason God made it, and established things the way that He did, and we understand that. But when it comes to the one true love, we should all have that universal language. That should be not just at Christmas time. In the Christmas, oh, we'll go around and give everybody toys. But what about these same kids are suffering throughout the year? These same families, they need throughout the year. The same homeless people, they were homeless 2 days before Christmas. And and so when we begin to look at that and say, what burden has hit your heart? What's your burden? Do you have one? And you look and you say, that's what I said, everyone has a gift, and you are that gift. You have a significant gift of love to give to someone in a very special way. Ms. Olga's gift, what she gives to us, I'm telling you, the way her publishing, her editing, her illustrations, that is a gift from above. And she gives it so freely. That's a gift of love. Because you're looking at this and you're like, what did we do to deserve that? And I know the gift that's operating there is the love of Christ, being born again. This is what Jesus was talking to Nicodemus about. That type of love. Can you give of yourself? And when we learn to give of ourselves, because first we got to learn to love ourselves. Because when you love yourself, you realize that, you know what, there's a lot of things that I can do, but there's so much that I am. I have so much to give because of who I am, because of who he's called me to be, because of who he's created me to be. I can give. I can love. I can do that. If I don't have but 2 pennies to my name, I can love on you. I remember my what we used to say about our grandmother. I was like, she didn't have a whole lot. She didn't. She didn't have a whole lot. But it's one thing we all knew in that household. We knew what it was to be loved. Because whatever she had, she gave it in abundance. In abundance. Even down to the clothes. Everybody was like, they just thought we had all this money. No, 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 no. Because everything was going to be washed and everything was going to be ironed to the point. I mean, and wash the clothes to where it looked like they had just come from the cleaners. I'm old school. I'm telling my age now, where you have everything was creased and everything. They were like, well, wait a minute. I thought y'all were in the hood, but it didn't matter about where the zip code was. What was being given, that level of love. And we were taught and given in those areas to love yourself, believe yourself. I know we used to sit around and talk about, I had this thing where I don't know what my friends is. I'm not able to make friends. And I blah, 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 blah. Nobody likes me, this and that, and I have these little temper tantrums. And she got in my face one day. She said, you got to learn in this life. You don't need nobody but God. Do you understand me, little girl? And I was like, yeah, but I was like, you got to learn in this life. And I was like, okay, okay, I got you. But we've become so codependent now. Our children didn't get that because there's no outside running around outside. There's no big families with the cousins. And so where we didn't have to worry about going out trying to make friends with everybody because your cousins was getting on your nerves. Everybody, my grandmother had 12 kids, all of us in the same daggone house. So that's your friend. That's what she used to tell us. Family, let me tell you something. That you take the option out when it comes to family because you have no choice but to love. You're gonna learn to love today. We like, oh, okay. They thought Cat Williams and all of them. No, 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 no. Rebecca Maybride, you're gonna learn love today. Yeah, that's what y'all gonna do. You fight. And if we were, and it's so crazy, you want to fight, y'all got in that backyard and deuce it out. And you come back in here, I don't want to hear this no more. And that's how it was. Love. We got to start bringing some of the old back. We got to start putting them down in our households. And we have to start doing that. So, we talked about the priority of love. Okay. We talked about that. Now we've talked about the character of love. When you begin to look at all of that. And so the characteristics of love. And then we go the permanence. Paul, let me tell you something. Paul was a bad man. Paul said, it never ends. Never. Love never ends. That's why you can hear somebody say, well, you know what, that person passed some time ago. They still talking about, no, 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 no. You love somebody. You love somebody. I don't care how long they've been gone. That love never ends. Not if you truly love them. It never ends. And so now we're looking at, now he's looking at the temporary, comparing the temporary to the eternal. What was temporary, you heard us say earlier, all that stuff can pass away. But the nature of love is eternal. And this is why when we talk about being followers of Christ, ambassadors of Christ, we have to learn how to love unconditionally. We have to learn how to love like God loves, unconditionally. That's permanence. Permanence. Your children, you love them, that's permanence. I don't care what they do. Okay, how angry you get. You don't stop loving them. That's permanence. Okay? And you're like, this is what God's saying. That's that constant force. That's constant, regardless of the circumstances. Uh, the perfect example, the prodigal son. That's the perfect example of that unconditional love. And so the things that people say, and I love that story because oftentimes we don't understand why the father ran out and covered him. Because what he did, he would have been stoned. What he did, it was that right there. He should have been stoned because what did he do? He said that his father could be dead. He saw him as a dead man when he asked for, give me mine that was give me when you were gone. And they don't play that. Wait a minute, you just cursed your father. You said he was dead to you. To give you everything now while you're living, you're dead to me. And then you went off and you threw it all away. You threw it all away. You squandered it. And now you come back. And the father knew. And people are like, well, he ran out of hug. No, 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 no. He didn't run out to hug him and fell on his cheek. He ran out to cover him. Because and I always say that's a prototype of Christ to cover us. Because if a stone is to come, you're going to have to hit me first. If a stone is to come, you got to hit me first. And that's what he was saying. Yo, no, 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 no. This one is mine. If a stone is to come, I'm going to take the first stone because I'm covering him. And so when we look at that, that's that unconditional love that we're talking about. That's that permanence. And so we talk about things, and I don't think we ever get to the true anatomy of what the word of God is truly saying when we talk about love. When we get in there, and he was like unconditional, we start hearing terms like that, permanence, character. We sort of look at it and say, now the maturity of love. The maturity of love. What he says when he compared everything, when I thought like a child. When I was a child, I thought like a child. Because you got teenagers, anybody ever raised a teenager, we know exactly what we're talking about. They're self-centered. It's me, 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 me. But they're at that level of development that, you know what, they're supposed to be self-centered. They're supposed to be thinking about themselves. They're supposed to be coming into their own, but we're there to teach them that, you know what, I'm gonna need you to let go of some of that selfishness, some of that pride, and all that immaturity. I'm gonna need you to grow up a little bit. So we're teaching them how to grow. We're teaching them, we're shaping them, raise up a child in the way he or she should go. When they grow older, they shall not depart. That's what we're talking about. You're teaching them, but Christ is teaching us to grow. That's what Paul was saying. I'm teaching. When I was a child, I felt like a child. And so now that's the current knowledge of Christ. And now that we have that current knowledge, now we're growing and we're selfless. Okay? We're not prideful. We're going into maturity. We've had these challenges before us. And so we have to challenge ourselves to put others before us in love sacrificially. That's the maturity of love. Can you deny yourself for the sake of others? Can we do that? And then we come on down this last one, the ultimate triumph. And I love this because that's when Paul goes on to say, faith, you can have hope, but it's love that abides. And the greatest of these is love. It is the pinnacle It is the very tip. It is the very top of the Christian virtue. It's a virtue of Christian virtue. Okay? So when we look at that and we're looking at everything, I don't know how we can live our lives and hate somebody because of the color of their skin, or because of the region of the world that they're from, or because, I'm superior, whatever the case may be. When we go back in, it is the essence of God's character, and it's the ultimate expression of our faith. And so when we hear all this stuff today, I challenge you, when you hear it on the news, because the news, it has gotten so profound and so ugly that you just have to say, I'm going to turn this off for a minute. And then when you hear the church, because you say, we have the power to transform this thing. But if we're like Nicodemus, and this is what Christ was saying, I believe this is the time we're living in now, where he's looking at the church and he's saying to the church, just like he was saying to Nicodemus, you're teachers you're teachers of this world. You're teachers of society. You're teachers of your children. You're teachers of your families. You're teachers of the faith. And if you don't have it right, if we don't have it right, how do we then have reconciliation? How do we then get to the point where we're healing, helping people heal from brokenness? How do we then transform lives? How? If we're not filled with the Holy Spirit, and which allows us to operate in that love. But first, we got to embrace that. How do we do it? That's why he said the greatest of these is love, because that is the essence of God's character. It is the ultimate expression of our faith, hands down. No matter how you want to play it, this is it right here. That's why he gave us his two greatest commandments. And so he didn't say his two greatest ideas, his two greatest commandments. Okay? Love. It started out with love. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul, your spirit. And have no other God. Have no other God before you. God has to be first because God is love. Now, I need you to hear what I'm saying here. God has to be first because God is love. And if you can love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, your mind, your spirit, your soul, if you can love and have no other God before you, then you can't go wrong. Then he tells you, now love your neighbor as yourself. Love others as I've loved you. And if we really taught that, we couldn't ostracize anybody. We couldn't ostracize any population. We may not agree with how things are and some of the behaviors, but you don't ostracize. You love. But love also comes with order, right? Discipline. And we begin to look at that. But if I love you enough, you're beginning to hear what I'm saying because you saw the Christ in me. You saw the sermon in me before you ever heard it. You saw the God in me before you ever seen anything or got anything out of me. You saw those things. You saw the sacrifice, the maturity, the love, the relationship that I have with my Father. It will dictate how you treat others. I promise you. So when we look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, if you don't know any other passage in the Bible, learn that one, the entire chapter. You heard me read it. And that helps us to remember that love is not just an emotion. It's not just a feeling. It's not just a goosebumps, It is a choice. It is a commitment. It is a daily decision to love God and to love others unconditionally. unconditionally, unconditionally. And when you get to that place where you can love unconditionally, you're a bad person. You really are. And that's why I'm at a place now in my life that I'm like, God, if you don't do anything else, you've done enough. You love me more than I could ever love myself. You love me so much that you pull me out of areas that had I stayed there, I wouldn't be here today. You've loved us enough that many of us are breaking the generational curses in our families. We're turning these things around. We're the sacrificial lamb. And we say, okay, God. And it's not about pride and it's not about boasting. It's the ultimate sacrifice to love unconditionally, to take the time. Some of us have given up our livelihoods. And when I say livelihoods, that the dreams that we had because we saw the next generation and say, somebody's got to be here to move this forward. Somebody's got to be the center. Somebody's got to make this work. Somebody's got to teach the principles. We don't want any more Eli's and we don't want Ichabod's. Okay? Somebody's got to teach about the precepts and the principles of our faith. We have to understand that. Traditions. We have to understand that. We're becoming lost, but we're coming lost because we've come away from our first love. Our first love. If we can get back to our first love, if you ever lose your way, if you get back to your first love, if you ever lose your way, just Jesus, 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 and Jesus. And I was like, I'm supposed to just walk around and Jesus, Jesus. But it's something about that name. When you begin to say it and you begin to profess it and you begin to confess it, it's just something about that name that you get to a point, it gets in your heart. And you're like, okay, I'm feeling stronger. I got this. I know I need to be in the right place at the right time. It's just something about the name. And so, just like it was something about looking at that manger. And y'all know that's where they feed the horses their water. And feed the water, allow them to drink. And it's like, oh, wow. That's what he was born in. And then he goes over to Gethsemane. And then he goes to the cross. And all of that for me and for you, for us, so that we can turn and give unconditionally to others. That's some type of love right there, y'all. It is. Well, I thank you for joining us tonight. I really do. I hope you got something out of this message. I hope that you did. And if it was too much, just remember this. I don't care what you have. I don't care what type of car you're driving. It could be a G-Wagon. It can be a Bentley. I don't care. Without love, it means nothing. Okay? Yeah, hundreds of thousands of millions. And without love, it means nothing. You have the poorest of the poor are the richest of the rich because they've learned to give of themselves, to give their last. That's the type of love we're looking for. That's the type of love that's going to turn this world around. That's the type of love that would cause you to be able to walk out your door and look and be able to give to another. That type of love. Amen. Well, we love you. 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 Thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back here on Sunday. Yeah. And we'll see what God will say then. And we just ask that you guys like, and share when you see our messages. And as we move forward, tell somebody about us. Invite somebody. We are here, and I moved everything to 6 o'clock on Thursdays, 6 o'clock on Thursdays, 9 o'clock on Sundays. Okay? Come on in and join us as we build and as we grow and as we teach them how to love. Amen and amen. Y'all have a good night. We will see you soon. Mwah. Peace. Peace. Bye. Love you.